Kate Mila-Falcher, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. Welcome to Debbra, LUPIEN, voice of the Akashic Records. Hello.
Hi there.
So you were just explaining the background for me. So today we're doing John Mack, and you guys are going to find out this is the most interesting person. So explain your background, Deborah.
So he was, I think, a psychologist, but he was also an author.
Psychiatrist,
okay, and author. So he's busy working, writing his books at his desk, doing his studies, his research, and then he got seduced into ETs and the cosmos and the bigger story of the world. So we have him going from one stage to the other.
Unlike a lot of people in academia and science who get entrenched in the status quo, he had curiosity, and he was very ethical. He wouldn't tell somebody, "I think you're nuts," because he didn't understand. He tried to expand his understanding. So this is a guy, his parents were both academics. His father was a professor at somewhere in New York that I can't read my handwriting. His mother died when he was a baby, but he remarried a woman who was an economist. So there was kind of a high level of intellectual pursuit going on in his house. His sister was the pioneer for the computer analysis field and was a professor at Dartmouth and the University of Massachusetts Medical School. Excuse me. Wow. I know. His father would read the Bible to them when they were little as literature, like Aesop's fables, Grimm's fairy tales, and the Bible. Let's see here. He went to a fancy Ivy League prep school in the Bronx called Horace Mann. Horace Mann was the guy who started public education. And they were very, I don't want to say experimental, but they were really advanced in their attitude about learning. It's still there, and it's called like the best private K through 12 school in the United States. And so he had this wonderful education. There's a whole list of people who went there. It's hilarious. Like Barry Sheck went there, the OJ trial, and Bill Barr went there. Roy Cohn went there. All these people went there.
Esteemed group.
Yeah. So he went to Oberlin. He was Phi Beta Kappa. He went to Harvard Medical School. He graduated cum laude. He trained at the Mass General Psychiatry Department. He was in the military. When he came back, he went right back into the Mass General mental health system in Boston. He was involved in a bunch of different, mental health things. He was a certified child and adult psychoanalyst and psychotherapist and a psychiatrist and a professor at the medical school. He taught at Harvard Medical School, and he got his tenure as a full professor in 1972, was the head of the chairman of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard. Now, all this matters because of what happened later. All these credentials, this background matters. He published more than 150 articles in peer-reviewed journals. He published about heroin addiction. He published about child psychiatry, teenage psychiatry. He was dominant in the area of study of the exploration of how one's perceptions of the world affect one's relationships, like the idea of a worldview. And he would analyze dreams and nightmares and things that kids did. But here's my first question. Wait a minute. Let me find something here. Okay. I want to get this chronological. So in 1977, because he didn't accomplish enough with his life, he won the Pulitzer Prize for the biography he wrote of Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh,
what? Well, he got interested in him from a psychological point of view, and he became the world expert on, what is his name? T.E. Lawrence of Arabia. But he won the Pulitzer Prize. I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big, gigantic deal. So let's ask him about that. I want to know about that.
Okay, what do you want to know about it?
How can somebody be so smart? No fair.
Well, maybe what inspired him, I don't know.
It's fascinating to me that there are people that are so accomplished. Like if they put their hand to, you wait, there's more. He puts his hand to something and he doesn't just do it. He achieves the highest accolades. And it's not about the accolades, it's about the excellence. It's astounding to me. So can he just talk about winning the Pulitzer Prize? Was he surprised?
Yeah, it's about curiosity and a certain level of excellence married. And that's, I believe, what drove him. So yeah. So John Mack, could you tell us about your experience of winning the Pulitzer? What was that like? He was a very grounded man. And he said, yeah, very curious. And he didn't just lightly look into things. He dove into it head first and got all of the juicy goodness that he could. And then he drew the connecting lines. He liked to connect the dots to get the bigger picture so that he could understand things at a deeper level. He wasn't happy with just a surface understanding of things. He wanted to understand at the deeper level. So what was the other thing you asked?
Well, I'm just, no fair.
There you go. You kicked out for a second. Say it again.
Oh, okay. Just no fair, that one person could have all the brains in the world. What I'm trying to figure out how to arrange this question. So he studied T.E. Lawrence. What did he learn about the mind studying this guy?
Great question. So what did you learn by studying about the mind of Lawrence? He was an interesting fellow. He did not think like the average person who might go along in a pretty much straight line with the way that their thinking went. His went up and down and curved around, and then it jumped, and he was just all over the place. And then he brought all of that together. It was like he was knitting. He knitted a story from all of those wild pieces that he first crafted. Then he knitted it all together so beautifully to form that story that just drew you in and had you immersed and mesmerized so that you had to keep going. And that was what fascinated me, the ability to think that way, to function that way at such a high level.
Do you think that if Lawrence had lived today, that he would have been written off as just, culturally appropriating things and being into cosplay and living fantasy, or would it have been completely unnecessary? Because I may be wrong, but I get the impression that a lot of him assuming this persona had to do with the fact that he was gay, and it was just verboten, and especially in his social circle. So I guess my question is, was he just a person of the time? Would he have been that way no matter what time period?
Yeah, he just said he was neurodivergent. That's what caused that wild thinking pattern. And it worked for him.
Yeah. So would he have been that way then today?
So do you think he would have been the same way today? Well, hard to say, because if he were born into a different time, different parents, all the variables that are involved, it may have been different. But all I could work with was what he was.
Well, it reminds me of something which has absolutely nothing to do with what I talked about in my presentation about him. But I bet he knows about this. If not, it's obscure. But there was a woman who was from England who, when she was a little girl, 6, 9, something like that, fell down the stairs. And the family doctor, because it was, in the olden days, the 20s or the 30s. This doctor declared her dead, but she was in a deep coma. When she came out of the coma, she came out of it speaking and reading ancient Egyptian and knowing the history of ancient Egypt and calling herself Om Seti. And I just wonder how much of what happened with Lawrence of Arabia was that kind of a parallel situation. Are these people dealing with a neurological situation today, or are they bringing forward something from a past life experience, or are they tuning into the information in the field, the zeitgeist, the ether?
So
it's a terrible question. I'm sorry.
No, it's just a little roundabout. So, do you believe that Lawrence would have been? Now I lost the whole train of thought of what you were trying to say.
So he said that he was neurodivergent, and I was asking if he had been alive today, would it been called culturally appropriating, cosplaying? Would he have been written off in those ways? Was it inherent in his neurology? Or, like with Om Seti, was there some connection to
Past life, that was the
another
part.
time and place? Yeah.
Okay, so do you believe that Lawrence was getting some of the zeitgeist that he worked with from a past life? Is that a possibility? A possibility, but more of it seemed to come from who he was and being the neurodivergent soul who needed to find his way through the world to find success when he was really out of step with the average person. So he had that challenge as a young person, and he learned to overcome it so that the average person probably would not have realized he was neurodivergent. They would have thought he was eccentric. They wouldn't have seen the depth of it.
So is he familiar with Om Seti, with that case?
So are you familiar with the Om Seti case? Yes, he's heard about it.
So does he think that that was the result of a head injury? And if he says yes, how do you learn a dead ancient language from a blow to the head as a child?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be challenging, but
yeah. No, I understand the question. Yeah. So what do you think with Om Seti? Her being able to come out of the coma, speaking a dead language, was that because of the head injury, or did she connect with a past life where she knew that language? Or could it have been that she was in some way possessed by a spirit that brought those abilities? Or maybe something entirely different that we're not thinking about. So what would you say about that? He's thinking about it. Yeah, he agrees with you. No way is a head injury by itself a full explanation. Yes, it could have been the catalyst that put her in a state where she was able to connect with something else and she downloaded something else. Was it an entity? Perhaps. Was it a connection to past
let me
life?
add some information.
That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right to him. He's thinking more like it was an entity that she connected with. So then it was like there was duality about her. So the individual that she was to begin with kind of took a back seat, and Om Seti stepped forward, communicating with the world.
In the same way that people talk about interaction with alien entities, in the middle of the night, and she talked about, after this injury, that she had been either, I can't remember, it's been so long, an apprentice to a priest in a temple, or married to the priest in the temple, and they were partners, and his soul would visit her at night in England, in this lifetime. And she eventually was taken under the wing, mentored by a professor at Oxford or Cambridge. She went as a very young person with no education and knew way more than he did. And he wasn't dumb. He said, okay, you stay. We'll work together. She ended up going to Egypt. She helped to discover, uncover, and explain all the weird rooms and stuff they found of a temple in Egypt, which she claimed was the temple where she had been with this priest. So her story was that she communed with this soul that she had lived with in the past and was reunited in Egypt in modern times by, she stayed at that temple her whole life. She moved to Egypt and just stayed there, like living out her former life. And I wonder, could you even imagine an association, the so-called, priest, spirit, whatever, and her alien abduction? Is that the same sort of visitation, or?
Yeah, what I'm getting is it could have been a walk-in. And that would explain how they took over so completely. And then she stayed that way. She didn't change. So that would have been, I'll ask him to verify this, but that would have been when she got the concussion and the coma, her spirit left the body and the son walked in. And that would make sense.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Oh. So John, can you comment on that? Do you know, do you have access to that information? Is that what really happened? It was a walk-in? He doesn't have access to that information, but he says it does sound like it. It could be that.
It could be. Oh, thanks. That's really interesting. So, okay, in his free time from being like the world's greatest psychiatrist, he won the Pulitzer Prize. And then this gets even more remarkable. Do you remember the organization about, do I have the name of them here? Well, there was this organization of ethical professional medical people who were against nuclear weapons. Remember that?
No.
And I remember because Dr. Helen Caldwell was one of them, and her name stuck in my head. But also, not Caldwell, Caldecott, and also Carl Sagan, who he knew, and Physicians for Social Responsibility. They were against nukes. So Sagan and John Mack and Helen Caldecott, and they worked with Jimmy Carter. They worked with Edward Teller. They worked with a lot of different people. They all won the Nobel Prize. So he won the Pulitzer, the Nobel Peace Prize, That's just remarkable. Who was the most interesting person that he worked with in the anti-nuke group?
So, John, who was the most interesting person that you were connected with in that anti-nuclear group? Is there one person who stands out for you? He doesn't want to pick just one. He said there were so many extraordinary individuals that you can't choose.
Who's your favorite child?
Yeah.
Now I understand. It was a stupid question. Could he talk a little bit about the threat of nuclear annihilation? Just a little bit, nuclear annihilation.
So could you speak a little about nuclear annihilation? He said, why would you want to talk about that?
It's in the front of our minds these days.
Yeah,
I have to say.
yeah. He understands, why it is prevalent and why people are thinking about it, but he would encourage us not to focus on it, to really focus on what we can do to change the little minute things in each of our lives that will impact on the bigger picture, that will prevent us from getting there. And he said in PS, by the way, the ETs are not going to let you blow the planet up.
Well, I agree with the concentrating on the small things in your life. But when I have the opportunity to talk to somebody who was so much in the forefront of it, I'm curious because he's such an ethical person. Maybe I need to find the right question. Could he talk about the spiritual implications of something like nuclear weapon? Now, what is wrong with us? Seriously.
Yeah. So could you speak to the spiritual aspect of people who were involved with nuclear annihilation? They would be the ones that you look upon as the fragmented, damaged souls. They're incapable of compassion for others. It's all about their greed, their ambitions. And there are some souls who have a real curiosity about negative energy. They're fascinated by it. And they will push the buttons and the envelopes as far as they can go. And they would be the ones you need to be concerned about. Somebody needs to put a leash on them.
We're talking about somebody whose first name starts with Stephen, last name ends with Miller.
Actually, no, there are others behind the scenes who would be those. He's in a whole category by himself.
Miller?
The one that starts with T.
Well, yeah. I'm not as focused on all of them as much as I'm perplexed by their seeming nihilism. They don't seem to care. I'm sure they recognize that if we all go, they go too, but they don't seem to care about that.
Well, he says, no, that's not true. You see, they're living in a fantasy world where they believe they've built these bunkers and they will be safe. They can blow us up, get rid of the riffraff, reduce the population to something manageable that they can then rule over. That's a fantasy that they're entertaining, which of course is not true. They'd blow themselves up too. But that's the reason they do it. They're just living in a fantasy world.
How does the soul get to that point? How does the soul degrade to that point?
So can you speak to that, John? How does the soul get to that level of degradation and lack of concern for fellow humanity? Really bad choices over a series of lifetimes. It's like a snowball rolling down the hill, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until they get to the place where they're so damaged that they really can't function on that human level. And what you need to know, the hopeful story, is that when they leave this particular incarnation, the damaged ones will go into a different line for repair. They're not going to be allowed to incarnate again until they do a soul reset. So that is coming. And we're sorry you've got to deal with them now.
Well, I'm just really fascinated by psychopathology. I'm not sitting up nights with losing sleep or anything like that, but I'm really curious about what makes them tick. I'm trying to understand it. It's very difficult to understand because there's something missing, there's that element of something.
Well, he said, think of it, it's like they're playing a game of chess. No emotion at all. It's just about the moves and about winning and, beating your opponent. They're automatons.
Yeah. And, you can understand it up here, but it's hard to digest it and integrate it in here. It's just really difficult to understand.
He says it's anathema.
Pardon me?
It's anathema.
Yeah. It seems antithetical to survival instinct even. It's crazy. Okay. So in 1990, this is where the plot thickens. I should say that if I sound like I'm treating this lightly, I believe this. I believe this happened. I believe they were telling the truth. I believe that he did the right thing. If I treat it lightly, it's just, for entertainment purposes only. So in 1990, what we understand is he got approached by some colleagues who said, we've had this trickle in of patients who come in with the complaint that they're getting abducted out of their bedrooms at night, and they're levitating through walls, and they're going into spaceships, and they're being probed and studied. And, you know, the little gray men with the big eyes, the whole Whitley Strieber story, right? And this was not widely publicly known. I'm not sure if it was right before Whitley Strieber wrote his book Communion. That was the first time anyone ever saw a depiction of
Yeah.
a gray alien, right? So he gets these stories. What did he think when he first heard them?
So what did you think when you first heard the stories about the alien abductions? Well, I was laughing on the inside, but of course I couldn't let that out on the outside because it just seemed so absurd. But because of my curiosity, I was open to the fact that perhaps there was some truth to this, and I wanted to follow the trail and learn more about it. So it really excited an interest. It piqued me to the point where I became a little obsessive about it and followed all the leads. I wanted to know more. I wanted to contrast and compare. But after talking to a number of people, the same information kept coming up. You
And they
can't,
didn't know each other. Yeah.
yeah.
He did these studies. He evaluated all these people to rule out typical mental disorders. What did he think when he realized that they all scored normal?
So what did you think about that? Scoring normal despite the stories they were telling. Well, at that point, I was already opening my mind to the fact that it probably was true. So the scores just helped to settle that for me. And then it was just a matter of continuing to follow the leads and get as much information as I could. And of course, at that point in time, it was a little early to make my findings totally public. But bit by bit, I knew it would come out. And meanwhile, I was gathering all the information I could so that I could have the big picture to present when the time was right.
So I'm gonna assume, you know, Dr. Smith asks you to consult on somebody, and you get this story that at first you think it's outrageous, and then you realize that they're stable otherwise. It's just this crazy story. And you go back to Dr. Smith and say, well, my second opinion is they're mentally healthy. They just had this strange experience. I can't explain it. How did Dr. Smith react? Like, how did his peers react?
So tell us how the doctors reacted when you came back to them with your findings. About the way you'd expect. Some scoffed. Some were curious. They wanted to know more. And others just thought that I had lost my mind.
Yeah, I can understand that. Why is it? I mean, I think I know, but just be curious to hear his opinion that so many people in science and academia tend to dig their heels in and don't want to look at anything new off the status quo. Why is that?
So why do you think the scientists are so stubborn and dig their heels in about what they believe they know? After all, they deal with hypothesis all the time. They must know that other possibilities exist. There's a certain type of scientist who's very pedestrian. They learn the facts, they recite the facts, a little bit of an automaton, you might say. No creativity, just following the lines and the rules. And then there's another kind of scientist who is open to exploring the possibilities. And they understand hypothesis means there are other answers out there to be learned. The open-minded ones are the ones that you want to work with.
Okay, let's see here. So he actually started talking about this publicly, and he told somebody, I didn't write down which media outlet it was. He said, I don't take them at face value. I take them seriously. I don't have a way to account for, what they're saying. So then he talked to PBS in 1996, and he said there are aspects of this which I believe were justified in taking quite literally. So he went on to say that UFOs are like physical and real. And so is that the aspect of it that he believes? Does he believe that these are merely physical manifestations? Because he goes on later into really giving serious consideration to kind of I don't know how to put it, sort of the intersection of physics and metaphysics.
Yeah, I don't know how to ask that question.
Obviously, neither do I. So let's take it step by step.
Yeah.
So he believed them that they were physically levitating and going into a spaceship and the whole physical reality of what they were talking about.
He said, correction, I was open to believing them, but was still maintaining skepticism because he hadn't proven anything yet.
We don't really understand consciousness. And, there's a lot of talk these days. Well, there has always been a lot of talk, but it seems more broadly disseminated that what we're seeing in the material world is an illusion, and that it's a construct of our consciousness. So did he look at it that way, that maybe it appears to be physical, but really it's a manifestation of their consciousness?
So what do you say to that, John? Had you yet stumbled into the ideas that it could be something coming from a metaphysical source? Questioning reality. Had you gotten that far yet? Well, yeah, he was questioning reality, that's for sure. But not at the level you're talking about, Helen. That would come later. And that would also come in collaboration and discussion with colleagues, because they were beginning to open up that door and explore what is reality. But in the beginning, he hadn't cottoned on to that yet. That came later.
So I would assume that he's familiar with the work of Jacques Vallée and, the researcher, and Dr. Diane Pasulka, and the two of them kind of compared notes at a conference, and they've been working parallel to each other since. And they both have the feeling that UFOs are just a modern manifestation of Marian apparitions, which was at that time a new iteration of fairies and goblins, and maybe not elementals, but gods and goddesses. All of these things that people claim to see throughout the time, history, are really coming from the same place and presenting themselves appropriate to the age that they appear. So if a metallic spaceship with no engine flew out of the sky and landed in some Renaissance palace, it would be much harder for them to accept that. But they could think of it as angels, or they could think of it as Mary, Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So so he should be in a position now, I would think, to be able to tell us, are we on the right track when we link all of these different manifestations together as really all parts of a whole? Are they all related? When we talk about aliens, are we also really talking about the same energetic thing as ghosts or apparitions? Is it all basically the same thing with a different explanation?
So, John, would you say that the entire span of apparitions, spirits, ETs, what have you, are they all just a big homogenized bowl of one thing? Or are they actually individual connections with different purposes and different reasons for being involved with us? So is it like one conglomerate, or is it individualized? Can you help us understand that? No, it's individualized. There's far more out there than you have even yet realized. It's
well, I haven't realized anything yet, so it's okay.
Well, you collectively, right? It's like, no. Because otherwise, it would be like a collective hallucination if it was all the same thing. This is not, it's individualized. It's coming from different places with different intentions.
Okay.
Not all the same intention.
So I'm trying my damnedest to connect UFOs and philosophy and spirituality. Is that a big mistake? Am I on the wrong road there? Is there a connection?
So would you say there's a connection between the vast spirituality and everything that means today versus the ET stories? No, here's where they diverge. There are, in the multiverse, other planets, other beings living their lives. Earth is not alone in that respect. They are other cultures, other societies. They are not spiritual deities. But there are many who are highly evolved and have the ability to keep an eye on Earth, which they have been doing for a very long time. They're monitoring the situation. So you see, they're very different. They're actual living beings. They're not spirits. Does that make sense?
Yes, but okay, so I know he knows about this. The Hermeticists believe that they had the whole world, the whole reality between us and the source kind of divvied up and described in different levels, different layers. And it's kind of physics, for every time you have an incarnation and you evolve spiritually, your molecules vibrate farther. And eventually you're no longer needing to be in a physical manifestation because you're more of the spirit world than of the physical world. And this continues and continues and continues until you return to source. That's what Hermeticists believe, a long time ago. And when people talk about aliens being more highly evolved, to me that means that on those levels of the Hermeticists' philosophy, they're vibrating faster. Am I completely wrong about that? I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah, the distinction is what he just downloaded to me. They're not necessarily vibrating extremely higher to be at a level where they would not incarnate anymore. They are more evolved society, technology, the way that they function in the world.
Okay, but they have their issues.
So there's so they're like humans and Earth. They've had a longer period of time of evolution. And by the way, we have been there, we've been with them, and now we're here living this. But then that's very different from each soul as its goal is during the many lifetimes is raising the vibrational frequency so that yes, they can live at a higher level each time. And eventually, maybe they'll decide to stop incarnating and just work on the other side. But that's the soul's choice. And remember that souls are eternal. So if you stop incarnating, which is entertaining and, growth opportunities, what are you going to do with yourself? You're just going to go twiddle your thumbs and watch the people who are embodied? Maybe not. Or maybe you do that for a while, but it will be your choice.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying. I had a question about that while I was talking. Something about moving back. Oh, I know. It's like that saying where one person's magic is another person's miracle, is another person's science.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. It's just we're calling it by different names.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm starting to get a headache right about here.
But think it's just different languages, you know? It's the same thing.
Yeah. So I have all these millions of trillions of questions. Can we ask him about the role they've played in human history over our time period on Earth?
ETs, you mean?
Yeah.
So could you comment on that, John, the role that ETs have played in the evolution of Earth and humanity? You have the stories of the aliens, or sometimes they were seen as gods, who came in early times and worked with primitive humanity, helping to evolve them. There are many stories. There are some of hybrids. There are some of just beings coming and bringing knowledge, helping whomever was existing on the planet at that time. And it has changed through the centuries. So you've got the bones of the story. Some of it's true, some of it's exaggerated. So it's kind of a mishmash, but the through line is there that yes, there have been beings from other worlds who have been interacting with your planet and your people since the very beginning. They helped evolve the primitive beings at the beginning into the start of humanity as you know it today. Very primitive even then, but they were responsible for the momentum that those beings got, and then they guided them through the centuries.
Right.
They can't interfere with free choice, but they are around to guide, to influence, and that's what they've been doing since the beginning.
So the Sumerian stories of hybrids and gods, hybridizing, those are true to some extent.
Well, based on truth. Just like you say, just like your Greek gods.
Right.
Based on truth, but then exaggerated because that's what stories do that are handed down through the generations.
Right. No, I hear you. Who today who's investigating this stuff is getting closest to a real understanding of it? Like, whose books should we read? Who's getting close to it?
So could you point us in the direction of somebody who's actually on the right track that it would be wise for us to follow? It would be wise to follow more than one because each one has a piece of the story, but they don't have the entire story. And the wise path is to take what feels true to you from each one and then assemble your own truth. And that will be different person to person.
Okay, I had another question, but I have so many questions I can't keep track. Okay, so shifting gears just a little bit. What's the government's role in all this? Like the military, the Pentagon, the government. What are they up to?
So what do you say about that? What is the government doing, messing around with all this alien stuff? They're doing what they always do, trying to control the people. And they believe that this information and this technology is above the level of the average person to understand, to comprehend, to be comfortable with. They don't want to upset the apple cart. So they've been forced to release some information. But even what they've released, you can't necessarily trust because they distort for their own purposes. So take with a grain of salt whatever they tell you. Just like studying the various individuals who are writing their books. take the pieces that feel right to you, because where you come from as a starseed impacts upon what your truth is. So what's true for you, Helen, might be different from what's true for me, John, or whoever I am in the future. So you take the parts that make sense to you and put them together until you uncover the story that resonates with you. And that's good enough.
Okay, thanks. There's a purported kind of a cabal of people within the military, positions of power, able to do things, that believe that these are demons. They're fundamentalist Christians, and they believe all of this is demonic and satanic. And I am curious if the whole concept of demons and Satan and all that stuff is derived from some malevolent otherworldly entity that's been here and caused problems, or are we veering into the more spiritual, and it's not that at all? And these fundamentalist Christians are wanting to greet every extraterrestrial visitor with a gun. That's their default response to anything is fear and a
Yeah.
lack of understanding.
Yeah, anything they don't get, they immediately decide it's a demon. So what do you say about that, John? Demons, in the way that the fundamentalists described them, do not exist. Yes, there are dark souls who have disconnected from source for many lifetimes and become darker and darker. At some point, they will come to a cataclysm where they can go no further, and they will have to be pulled out of the rotation of incarnation until they're repaired, which we spoke about earlier, such as the one whose name starts with T. That soul will not be going on until it gets some major revisions. Healing must happen. So that would be what some would call demons, but they're simply souls that have gotten so fragmented, so damaged, that they're unable to function at any level of morality. Their morality, such as it is very corrupted, very dark, and all about control, greed, power.
So is it possible to communicate with them on an individual basis?
Is it possible to communicate with them individually? You mean the people who are corrupted souls?
Oh, no, I don't have any time for them. The ETs.
The ETs, okay. Is it possible to communicate with the ETs? Why, yes, certainly, and many on your planet right now are communicating with them, particularly those who have awakened to understand that they are starseeds and have reached out to their home planet to reconnect with who they always have been for that deeper understanding. So yes, many are communicating.
So does he have their phone number? Because I want to order a one-way ticket out here. Do you think we could arrange a trip somewhere else? Oh my God, I'm kidding. But seriously, how do you go about doing that?
How do you go about connecting with
communicating with them? Yeah.
Okay. So what would you advise for someone who wanted to communicate with the ETs? Well, I would first advise them to put protection in place, because anytime you open up and you're asking for communication with an entity, you want to be sure it's a positive entity. And then ask your divine team to help you connect with whomever it is that you wish to connect with. Or you may simply just ask for your divine team to connect with you and ask the questions of them. Then if they believe that the need is there, they can connect you later. So really the wisest choice is to connect with your team, because they know you and they will help you access the information that you need. And in that respect, that's your Akashic records.
Thanks. Does he have anything specific that he could tell us about our current situation? I know that individually we're supposed to be learning by observation how not to be and put into practice how we should be. I mean, I understand that, but I'm always looking for insight, trying to understand what makes these people tick. Why are they doing what they're doing? What is their end goal? I mean, they want us all to be dead or enslaved. Is that the idea?
He just said world domination. That's simple.
Oh God, why? That just makes me tired just thinking about it. I don't understand.
That's how corrupt and devoid of humanity they are. They see you and I and the others as like fleas on the planet that need to be exterminated.
It's such an incomprehensible perspective on your fellow human being. I just don't get it. It's weird.
So, John, do you want to comment on that? Yes, that's a fair assessment. And Helen, honestly, you don't want to try and understand it because it's so dark. You really don't want to go there. And what good would it do to understand them? You're not going to change them. What you can do is continue working for the light on your side of the equation and just not engage with them any more than you actually have to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious. It's interesting. It is interesting. I mean, people that are completely mentally healthy and normal, what's exciting about that? It's more interesting to try to figure out what makes the weird ones tick. Yeah. And it just is. I don't know why.
Some of it is, it's the abyss. It's so deep, so dark that you could not comprehend it, nor would you want to. Because once you stare into the abyss stares back at you.
Yeah. Do you think, this is just me speculating, do you think that a lot of the people in the periphery, the sycophants, do you think that they just really, truly don't understand the fire they're playing with?
So what do you say about that, John? They're like children. They're so naive. They're just looking for a leader that makes them feel safe. Because at their core, they are frightened little children. They don't know which way is up. They're looking for someone to tell them what to do every step of the way. They have abdicated their sovereignty.
Yeah, there's this theory. He'd be a good one to ask about this. There's this theory that if you come from an authoritarian upbringing, like your family, or they're really patriarchal and dominating, and especially if you also belong to an authoritarian religion, patriarchal religion, it actually changes you neurologically and neurochemically. And you lose the ability to think and make choices for yourself. You need external power to tell you what's right and what's wrong. And that's why they glom onto cults. They glom onto these strongman leaders. Is that a true assessment?
So what do you say about that? Can you help us understand the whole cult mentality, John? Let's draw a parallel to slavery. If you've grown up in a family who are enslaved, you see no possibilities for yourself other than the life that you're living. So it never occurs to you that there's a different choice until or unless you encounter someone who has escaped, who's built a new life and proves to you that it can be done. So for these sycophants who have abdicated responsibility and are living that life, it's as if they're in this bubble. They cannot see outside of it unless and until something pokes a hole in that bubble and has an impact on them. Somehow it shifts their perception because now it matters to them personally, where before it was just the big others out there who they didn't want to consider. It didn't matter to them. It only matters that they have a safe hidey hole to live in. But when that changes and they suddenly realize it was all an illusion and they're not safe, then they will begin to awaken and they will look for other possibilities.
I can't help but think of the guys that started the Lincoln Project, because all of them were big time Republican operatives. You know, they were running campaigns and fundraising and setting policy. And like Rick Wilson comes to mind, Stephen Schmidt, you know, and some reason, the reality of what was happening in 2015 woke them up, and they started a complete turnaround. And I feel like they have been a guiding light for a lot of people, because they're able to articulate what's morally wrong with what's going on and how it's possible to change your affiliation to say I was wrong, because they do. They come out all the time and say, I was wrong. I helped get some of these people elected and I will always regret it. Frank, oh my God, now my mind just went blank. It always does. Frank, who wrote Crazy for God and the Book of Zip, you know, his father was a big time born again. Yeah. He, Frank Schaefer, he was spending his life in atonement, basically, for having done what he did with the moral majority, you know, and all that nonsense a long time ago. It's really interesting. So I want to shift gears just a little bit, because I don't want to miss talking about this. He went to Zimbabwe in 1994 because there was a I don't know if you've ever heard of this. There was a UFO appearance at a school in Zimbabwe. It was outskirts of town, you know, a bit empty fields around it, and semi-rural environment in the school. And it was a big school, co-ed, kindergarten through high school. And the kids were all out on the playground, all of them, because the teachers were having a teachers conference. So there was one or two teachers that were in the playground keeping an eye. And there were one or two teachers who didn't have to be at this meeting, and they continued with their class. And so they had a front row seat, because their bank of windows in their classroom, they saw all this happen. And this was witnessed by, I don't know, a couple of hundred kids and some adults. So a few UFOs flying around, and one of them landed in a field. It was semi-concealed by tall grass, and a few little girls were at the head of the pack. They weren't supposed to go, but they went, and they got over the fence and they went there. They actually talked to ETs that got out of these things. But all of the kids who witnessed it had telepathic communication with the ETs. And they told all of them the same thing, essentially. People need to have peace in the world. People need to have respect for the environment. It's crucial that you spread the word of concern for the environment and brotherly love, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And so they left. And there was, within 2 hours, there was a contingent of official guys in black suits and stern-faced men who took them all into the auditorium and said, this didn't happen. You never saw anything. And so this was 94, and they recently did a documentary on it, and they went back and interviewed these kids, now adults. Not one single one said it didn't happen. They all said it completely changed my life. It really happened. One little girl ended up being locked up in a mental facility. Her family, they disappeared. One of her school friends walked home and then went over to her house to talk to her, and the entire family was gone and never came back.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a gigantic cover-up. The teacher in the classroom who saw it happen, his life was threatened. It was just unbelievable. So John Mack heard about this like almost immediately, and he went there and he interviewed these kids, and it's all on video. It is fascinating. Anyone who wants to watch it, it's on YouTube for free. It's some short sections of their interviews. It's called Ariel Phenomena, Ariel, because that was the name of the school, the Ariel School. So can he talk about that? Because I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah, so can you tell us about the Zimbabwe children who, and the teachers who witnessed the ETs? What was that experience like for you? It was exciting. It was marvelous. I was able to speak to them while it was still fresh enough in their minds. And the remarkable thing about it is it felt like a parallel from the Christ story calling the apostles forward. These ETs were calling these children to be modern day apostles, to go out and spread the gospel of love. And that was incredibly heartwarming to know that that was a priority for those who were visiting from other worlds. It was disheartening to see how the government tried to shut it down and shut them down. But it really lit a fire for me to continue the work and not let anything stop me.
I'm trying to think of the question I had about kids. Oh, okay. The question, I have a million questions and they all got jumbled together, but the question is that this message that they gave the children, there seems to be different periods of contact. So first there was, oh, we saw UFOs and we've got scraps of metal and the military collected it. That's one period of time. And then the next period of time is, oh, we saw UFOs and we had an interaction on the road in the middle of the night and they were friendly and it was great. And then the next period of time were the abductions and the medical experiments. And then the period of time after that is they started harassing military bases, nuclear facilities, you know. So this happened around the time that they were abducting people to do experiments, but it was a message from a little bit earlier. So it was almost like a last ditch effort to get the message across. And then the next thing that happened is they started collecting genetic material. It's basically reproductive material is what happened. So what does he think about the way that the alien approach has changed over time? What does that tell him about their plan or their relationship with us?
So, John, help us to understand, what do you feel has happened, the evolution in the way that the ETs interact with us? What's the bigger story that's going on there? So the experiments that they're doing when they abduct people, they're trying to get a better understanding of what it will take to help humanity shift. And of course, at the back of this is the question in their minds whether or not they need to do a big reset, like think Noah's Ark. Whether it's too late and only a few can be saved and then do a big reset, or whether there are still enough out there that can be shifted, can make a difference. So I think that's what's going on in their minds.
Where do you think we stand?
What's that?
Where do you think we stand? What does he think? I feel like it's pretty obvious. We're pretty far down the road, right? I mean, we're not going in the right direction, I don't think.
Let's ask. So
yeah,
where do you think we stand with that, John? Are we going in the right direction, or is all hope lost? I think there was a period of time where they were not sure there was hope. But over the ensuing years, there have been enough people who have had their spiritual awakening. And you've got to remember, Helen, This happened before the 2012 awakening that affected many people who started coming alive and reconnecting with their spiritual roots. That shifted everything for the planet. That was a real Rubicon moment.
Where was I?
Yeah. So at this point, enough of you are moving in a positive direction that they're willing to take more of a wait and see attitude and help wherever they can.
Sometimes I wonder if it, rather than a Noah's Ark moment or a sudden meteor from the sky type of situation with dinosaurs, sometimes I think they're just letting us do it incrementally to each other, bit by bit. I'm not kidding. I sometimes I wonder if that, just
he's saying there are far too many who are on the right track to make everybody pay for the sins of the few.
Oh, well, that's a relief. That's not seriously. I'm not kidding. That's good to hear, because it's easy to not see that.
Yeah. Yes, I understand why you would feel that it's an overwhelming number of negative souls, but they're very good at that illusion. And that's what it is. It's a sleight of hand to fool you into giving up because you think that there is no hope left. That's their end game. And if you give up, then they have one.
Well, I think the important message that we all need to really digest and internalize is that it's all a distraction, that really we're supposed to be focusing on trying to better ourselves, trying to evolve ourselves, not in a selfish material way. I don't mean that. I just mean focusing on why we're here and how we can make ourselves better spiritually, which is a day-to-day slog. It's all those stupid little decisions that, when you wake up in the morning, for me, you wake up in the morning and you read the paper, you should hear some of the things I say out loud. It would set the paper on fire sometimes because I'm just so disgusted. It's trying to get those decisions to go in a different direction to contribute to the larger energy, right?
So he just popped in to say, you gave the best evidence earlier when you talked about Wilson and Schmidt. Even though they were dyed-in-the-wool Republicans, they had some kind of a deep moral compass that helped them to see the deceit, the illusion, to overcome it and shift their entire focus. And there are many others like that who have that deep moral compass. It's those others who don't have it. They never had the foundation, or they allowed it to become so corrupt. They abdicated.
Yeah. Maybe he can help with this question, because this question, it really tortures almost everybody I know. Almost everybody has a loved one, a friend, a relative who has just seemed to have lost the plot. And I know that sounds judgmental, but when they're able to justify cruelty and mistreatment and denial of the basics to maintain life, when they're able to justify that, that's beyond the pale. How do you deal with that? I don't even know what to ask.
So what can you say to that, John? They will either awaken or they won't. Even some people who seemed like they had it all together and did have a moral compass, somehow they were triggered into falling for the lies. And once they went, it was as if they were pulled overboard and the tail of the whale, and they're now swimming around. They can't get out of the clutches. They're firmly attached to that hook.
Yeah.
However,
it's breathtaking. Yeah.
There's a slim chance that something will awaken them. And they will come out of this fugue state they've been in to see reality. But for those who are stuck on the whale tail, let's say, it's most unlikely that they will. They will just continue on that path. They'll be lost.
But my real question is, how do we, who feel like we're seeing things clearly? I don't know if we are, but we feel like we are. And we're observing people, excuse me, who were close to us, we cared about, who I have people in my life who were raised the same, went to the same schools, had the same religious training, the same cultural background, and they're all in on this situation. How do we cope with them? That's my real question.
Okay. So what would you suggest that we do to cope with those people who are essentially lost at this point in time? You do your best. No one can ask more than that of you. If it's too difficult for you, then don't engage with them. If you can engage with them, then keep the topics to something that's neutral. Because then you keep the door open for the day that they finally have their awakening, so that there is hope for them to step over the threshold, that they don't feel all alone out in the cold. And that's the loving thing that you can do. However, never step over the line of sacrificing yourself for them.
Yeah, that's a difficult little road, a narrow road to try to maneuver, right?
Yeah,
Because
but he's showing me this big picture that because there are enough people like you and I and in your audience who are awake, who see what's going on. And of course, we don't have it 100% right because we all have our biases. However, we are on the right track. We are leading our good ship in the right direction. And when we get to the place where we defeat those dark ones who are running things, there will come that moment where that will happen and they start sinking. Then those who are so lost now have a chance to see that, open their eyes, and come on board with us. A chance.
It's such a delicate balance because the challenge is to not judge, and the challenge is to set an example for the way that we want to live and have everybody live. And it's different because they're imposing rules and regulations. They're imposing thou shalt nots all over the place, and that's the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. It's really a difficult situation. Well, that's why we're here. We chose to be here.
But he says that as long as you keep in mind the golden rule, you can have compassion and love for them without liking them, without engaging with them. But you can have compassion and love, and that keeps you on the right side as far as it goes spiritually.
Well, compassion and love are Siamese twins of smugness and ego. It's just like right on the edge. It's a hard situation. And I know a lot of people feel the other way. They feel just despair, like there's no hope, and they feel complete despair. And I don't feel like there's despair because I feel like we're each responsible for ourselves, and they're just going to do what they're going to do. I can't help but be fascinated by the horribleness. I mean, I just am. I'm just mesmerized by the things that people can justify. It's unbelievable. Okay, let's see what else we have here going on. Oh, well, this is really sad. And I wonder, does he know that people to this very day don't believe that when he died, it was an accident?
No. So did you know, John, that there are people who believe that it was not an accident when you died? Yes, of course he knows about that. He's around. He hears things, talks to people.
What else has he heard? What about anything? I don't care.
Yeah. Well, don't you want to know whether it was an accident?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to think.
That would be the next question I would want to ask him.
Yeah. I'm assuming it was.
Let's just to be sure.
Okay.
So, John, was your death an accident? He said yes. He understands why people would think otherwise, but it truly was an accident. But it was his time to go, which is why he left.
But in that same vein, all of these scientists and military people who have been mysteriously dying suddenly, what can you tell us about that?
Great question. So, John, can you tell us? There have been a lot of scientists and military people involved in the ET world who've suddenly disappeared or died. Is there some grand conspiracy behind that, or is it just happenstance? Things are not what they seem.
Oh, come on. What does that mean?
There are nefarious deeds behind some of it, not all of it. Stay on your toes. Beware. Check the facts. Don't be led astray.
I think people have been really quick to jump into the conspiracy thing. And I'm really cautious about that because many years ago, there was a gentle decline that people went down. It wasn't a complete rabbit hole, but they started with these peripheral conspiracies. And before you knew it, they were at the bottom of the abyss with QAnon. And I related to some of the things that they were talking about, and I think they still are true, you know. But it's very easy to lose the plot to end up in the bottom of the abyss.
Because so much of it is happening that it's hard to tell which is true. So, do you want to ask about any specific cases?
Well, for example, the military guy a couple of weeks ago who disappeared, I think. Do you know who I'm talking about? Mick something.
I don't know is the name. I heard about it.
Let me see if I can find it really quickly.
I mean, we might as well ask about a couple as long as we've got them on the line.
Yeah. Well, what about what's his name who just died?
I can ask. You look and I'll ask about that.
Yeah, and I'll Google here.
John, recently David Wilcock died, and there are many in his community who believe that that was purposeful, that he did not go by his own hand. Can you comment on that? Do you know David Wilcock? He is familiar with him, yeah. So what do you say? Yeah, he's sorry to say that he was ready to go and he made the call.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, I would agree with that assessment. I followed his work 15 years ago, and he was really unstable then. You know, if you've ever, I mean, John Mack would know, if you've ever worked with a certain kind of mental illness, there's a frenetic nature to it. He was just on the ragged edge all the time. It was uncomfortable. So I'm not surprised.
It was a relief for him. It was like pulling the ripcord on the parachute. It was like that.
Yeah. Okay, I found him. It was easy. Major General William McCaslin, a 68-year-old aerospace engineer who worked on UFO research from Albuquerque, New Mexico, disappeared on his way. Okay. Yeah, they found his sweatshirt roughly 1.25 miles from his home. He left his cell phone behind, and he just walked out the door and disappeared. What happened?
William McCaskill?
McCaslin.
Okay. General William McCaslin. Can you tell us about him? He disappeared. What happened to him? He's showing me a picture. It's like something went poof inside of his head. He wandered out. He did not know what he was doing. He was like, did somebody do that to him though? Yeah, so somebody did that to him, and then he wandered out.
So he died. Did he die of exposure? But his
I'm not there yet. So is he still living or did he die? Can you tell us that? McCaslin, General McCaslin. So he did cross over. Okay. So did someone take him out, or did he like die of exposure or something? No, he was escorted out. Escorted as in,
Somebody did it.
across the veil.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, to shut him up. Right.
Yeah, but they did something to him. It's like a little silver pellet or something that maybe it had been implanted in his head, and they pulled the switch or something and made it. Yeah, that's the picture I'm getting. It's like it exploded inside of his head, which like he was really out of it. So that's why he wandered out like that. He didn't know what he was doing.
I don't know the names of any of the others. I just know there were a lot of them. There were about a dozen. Does he have anything he'd like to tell, like any advice or information?
Just in general, anything.
Anything we should know? I mean, should
Okay.
how much water should we stock up?
Okay. So, John, is there anything important for us to know right now that you can share with us? Yes, be of good cheer. Do not allow despair to overtake you. There is great hope. And yes, Helen, you should stock up on water because in the future, pure, fresh water will be short, and stock up on your food as well. There will be some hard times ahead, but you will get through it. That's the most important thing. You should know that there is hope that you can hold on to. There is no cause at all to go down that dark path to the abyss of despair, because then you will be lost. And right now, you are far from that, no matter what it feels like or what they tell you. There is hope. You are not done. You have more good works to do before you earn your justly rewards on the other side.
Well, I'm not in despair. I'm in disgust. And you can't help. I think you would not be a human animal because our base survival instincts come into this, and fear of not being around, survival instinct comes into play. But on the whole, I'm just really disappointed in people and really disgusted, and it's tiring. I'm not in despair though. I have a longer view of it. This will pass. I think it like I hope he finds this funny. I envision a race, and I'm in one lane and democracy is in the other, and it's neck and neck. I'm not getting any younger, and I just wish they'd clear this mess up because it's just appalling.
Well, he's saying you may be racing with the wrong figure because democracy may not make it. But
God.
No. Something else will take its place.
Well, yeah.
It'll be replaced. Democracy wasn't working. It wasn't really democracy.
If he could name one country right now who had it pretty much right, who would he name?
I didn't get the first part of that.
One country that had it pretty much right, their system and their worldview. Who would he name? Yeah.
So could you tell us one or a couple of countries that are really on the right track, going in the right direction? I hear Finland right away.
Yeah, I do too. I knew immediately.
Ukraine, but once they get past the war, the people have united in this just cause, and they will be rewarded, but it's going to be a rough road.
Before this started, Ukraine had the highest percentage of higher education educated people in the world. I think it was over 80% of their population had a college education or higher. They were extremely technologically advanced, and I think has gotten them as far as it has.
Yeah. Well, their innovation.
Pardon?
their innovation has been remarkable, and that has turned things around.
I think a lot of people, when you say Ukraine, I think 4 or 5 years ago, they pictured babushkas and wheat fields.
Yeah.
And horse-drawn carriages. I don't think people fully understood how modern and advanced and well-educated the entire population of Ukraine is, and it's a young population too.
Well, that's true in America. You know, other countries might have been more aware of it, but certainly in America, most people were not.
Putin underestimated them.
Well, he's got his own thing going on. He's out of touch with reality. Lives in his own little fantasy world, you know, just like the guy whose name starts with a T. Lives in
a Did you hear that that video I did a couple of days ago on it's called Dictator Chic? And it's all about how, you know, Nero is really the one responsible for starting it. You know, the gold and the curly cues and the big statues and the, you know, okay. So they accidentally found what was left of Nero's glory. The 1700s or late 1600s, around that time. And all the famous painters started copying the curly cues and the gold and everything. And the Kremlin and the Napoleon and the British royal family and all these people with heirs, AIRS, started copying it, and it became so definitive a style for people like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi and Idi Amin and somebody else we could mention, that that it actually is called in the world of decorating, interior decorating, dictator chic. That cracks me up. I think that's the funniest thing. But I digress here. Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. Well, I think I've run out of questions. I can't think of anything else. And does he want to ask us any questions?
Yeah. So do you have any questions for us, John? No. No, he's very happy we called upon him. He appreciates the opportunity to weigh in because he does have a lot of background and information to share, insights. And, you know, he's pleased to do that. So he says, you know, call me again.
Well, does he have any openings? I think we'd all use a little counseling.
Yeah, well, he's showing me, he's looking at his calendar and it's like, it's pretty wide open.
I'm free right now. I mean, I have nothing but time. Well, really appreciate it. And yeah, you know, maybe we will come back if we have the need to be talked down off the ledge. You know, yeah.
Yeah, he said what you could do, you could call a council together and we could have a session.
Like, what do you mean by council?
Well, like you could call him and his friend Carl Sagan and Nostradamus, and, you know, just a few, like a board that you call several and you ask them to weigh in on what's going on. You know, like, for instance, Jacques Cousteau, Maya Angelou, John Denver, and I forget who else. There's a few others who have popped in the past, and they've all told me that they are working together, like on this committee on behalf of Gaia. They're advocating from the other side.
It's a little intimidating. It's hard enough one-on-one. You know, I don't know if I want to talk to Nostradamus and Carl Sagan at the same time. Oh my God, I feel like I'm drooling on myself. That's
just a suggestion.
No, I mean, it sounds good, but it's intimidating. You know, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just encouraging us to ask for more. If you need more, ask for more.
Okay, well, thank you, because we will, I'm sure. I'm quite sure.
It helps because sometimes we need that little bolstering. So it really does help. So thank you, John. We appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much. This was wonderful. And I love your books.
He says, thank you.
Can't get a signature on them now, but I love the books. Thank you. And I thought that it was a a beautiful, beautiful display of respect and compassion when you interviewed those children. I was really moved by your demeanor, by the tenor of your questions. It was a beautiful thing to behold. There's so much ridicule and skepticism. It was just a wonderful thing. Yeah.
He says you honor me.
Yep. No, not me. Thank you.
Yeah, he feels honored.
Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome.
That was cool, huh?
Yeah.
So
I had no idea what to expect, so it was really interesting.
Oh, you know, Pulitzer Prize in one hand, Nobel Prize in the other.
Yeah, but still very humble.
Yeah. That's what comes when you hear him, you know, you see him on recordings. He's a very genuine person. There's not a phony thing about him.
Yeah.
And he could be very arrogant because he comes from, you know, that background. He really does. And he has compassion. He's just inherently a compassionate person and really interested. When people talk, he like pays attention to them and looks them in the eye. And yeah, really a remarkable. You would want him for your doctor, for sure. Let's just hope we don't need him.
Well, the door is open if we do.
Yeah, we'll have to. You and I'll have to plan something.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deborah. That was really fun. That was
Yeah,
really
my
interesting.
pleasure. Thanks for coming up with the concept.
Oh, well, you know, people absolutely love it when you do this. So I'm really grateful to you. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who watches and, you know, get a lot of positive feedback. I try to remember to tell Deborah. Do I tell you enough?
Yes, you do.
I do. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm only half in touch with reality most of the time. you know the emails you get from me. What time was it? What is it? Who are we doing? Just never know. Anyway, thank you, Deborah, and thank you everybody for watching. And you know, thank you to the remarkable and very unique John Mack. And we'll be back. Slán
Okay.
foil.
Bye.
Slán.